I'm currently a university student, and anytime one of my friends asks me about social media and I get the feel that they're interested in starting, I will always recommend that they do. I'll go as far to say you should begin immediately. Now, why do I say this? And I think this is interesting to see if you can relate to this because I've experienced it, my close friend group at school have experienced it, and a lot of my peers in my classes that I've spoken to have experienced this. And it usually happens in year 3, sometimes earlier depending on the individual. But it's what I'm calling an early life crisis. Now, I know that sounds dramatic, but it's this identity crisis because at that point you've spent so much time and money in a singular discipline, and you worry if the next 10 years of your life is going to be stuck in that discipline without any way out. And no matter if you really enjoy what you're doing or not, that idea can be terrifying in and of itself. So I've always been a fan of trying to create as many opportunities for yourself in the future so that you have the freedom to choose if you'd like. Now, that's why I chose biomedical engineering in the first place, because you do mechanical engineering work, electrical engineering work, you do bio, you do chem, so that you can have so many experiences coming out of college if you choose to have them, right? You can work in pharma, you can do a startup, you can do so many different things with that type of degree. And still I was feeling that, right? For me, it happened in year 3. Now, what I didn't know at that time was that something I was starting at the end of my freshman year would actually be the remedy for all of this. And the answer was social media, right? I could probably make a whole video in terms of where I believe the creator economy is headed, but it's massive nonetheless. More and more companies are spending more and more money on creators because they see the marketing potential of a targeted audience. They understand that short form content has absolutely transformed how we view marketing because of this. If you can utilize a creator's audience, they are much more likely to buy a product or service than if it was through a paid channel. So for example, on average for 1 million impressions, you'll pay $10,000 for paid ads. Now, if you can get those impressions from a much more loyal audience with the creator, you have absolutely no problem giving them $10,000 and potentially a lot more because, again, they're much more likely to buy that product or service. Now, that's just one example of where the potential of short form content and just in general social media can have for you. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to work with companies. You can start your own service or product, right? You can utilize it as a communication channel for networking purposes and set you up for different opportunities in the future. All in all, to have an audience, an online community that's super engaged with you has tremendous power. And I feel like so many people overcomplicate the process of this, right? Now, I've been in uni the last 4 years with a very much busy schedule, and I've been able to grow my accounts. And I believe that anybody can do it. And if you have the work ethic to do it, you certainly can. Like, it doesn't take that much time to post consistently. Now, I won't say that it's easy work. It's hard work, but it's not complex. And I want to make sure that you know that it's not complex if you are on the fence of starting right now. So what we'll do in this video is go over tips. Basically on the premise of if I was to start all over again, how I would build that audience, but in accordance to the things that I wouldn't do. I think this would be a fun way to approach it, so stay tuned. Number 1, and I think it's only appropriate that I begin with this because I just explained some of the great benefits of doing social media. It's that I certainly wouldn't take it lightly, right? This doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fun, because it absolutely should be, because it is a lot of fun. Coming up with a concept and then trying to make it come to life through filming and editing is one of the greatest joys that I've ever experienced, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, and that's a big part of why I tell people to start. But I wouldn't take it lightly, right? In order to reap those benefits, you have to be consistent. You need to make it so much of an importance that you integrate it into your daily routine. You don't have to spend a lot of time each day on it, but you should spend 30 minutes to an hour brainstorming concepts and filming, right? Because if you don't do that, then you're gonna lose any sort of ability to gain real traction, right? Sure, if you're really lucky, you might get viral across one video by not spending too much time on it, but then you won't know how to actually capitalize on that and bring those viewers in and keep them on your page for a long period of time. And that's what you're really looking for when you're talking about marketing potential. So I certainly would take it seriously, right? It blows my mind that adults, and we see our politicians in the news even talk about it as just a dancing app. It's so much more than that, right? Like, you can spread a message, you can reach people that you couldn't otherwise reach. So make use of it. Treat it as a potential career opportunity in the future. We don't have to think too far in the future like that, but it's important. So make sure you're dedicating the necessary attention and time to it. Number 2, I wouldn't spend too much time trying to perfect my niche before beginning, right? I think that any sort of coaching or course that you may take will start off with this route. They'll say get as specific as possible with your niche, because it makes it easier to develop concepts. It makes it much easier for you to gain a following quicker. Now, those things have a lot of truth to it, but your major concern as someone starting out is just getting a feel for everything, is embracing the beginner mindset and not restraining yourself at all and just allowing yourself to explore, right? Because you're so new to it, and you as an individual can be the niche, right? And you have so many elements to your personality and your lifestyle, so why not tap into those and create content? You'll figure out your likes and your dislikes. You'll figure out what you're comfortable sharing, what you're not comfortable sharing, but that'll only take time and experience. And I think rather than holding yourself back in the beginning, thinking that you have to perfect this niche that you're going to be targeting your audience towards for the next several months before you ever even create a piece of content, I would say don't worry too much about that niche. Have things that you want to create content about, but just have it in accordance with your natural personality and lifestyle. And yes, then eventually, once you figure out what you like to do and stuff, and you know exactly who you want to target towards, then you can specify your niche. And the more you get to it, the more you can specify as you go along. But don't worry about all of that in the beginning. Just get started. And I think for many people, trying to perfect that niche can hold you back. So I certainly wouldn't spend too much time on that if I was starting over. Number 3, I wouldn't worry too much about hashtags. I think that this is a big point of contention because a lot of people will say that this is the biggest key to SEO. And hashtags are definitely important, but don't spend so much of your time focusing on that, right? I think that 3 to 5 is sufficient, whether you're talking about TikTok or Instagram. And it helps to target your content without a doubt. But so many people that I've worked with personally will get so hung up on it that they'll even spend an entire day just thinking about the hashtags and going through all of them to figure out which one is the best in terms of when is it going to explode, when is it not, is it already too saturated, is it not too saturated. All of those things will come to you with a little bit more experience down the line. But for now, figure out the general audience that you're targeting that content towards once you make it, and then just put those 2, 3, up to 5 hashtags on it and post, okay? It's really not that big of a deal. A lot of creators and their videos will perform exceptionally well even without the hashtags being optimized. So there are a lot more other things important than that, like creating the piece itself and just getting it up and getting consistent at it. So I wouldn't get too worked up on hashtags in the beginning. Number 4, now this is something that I would get worked up on. I would not miss a day of posting. Now, will you naturally miss a few days? Absolutely. But the goal of mine is to post as much as possible, as consistently as possible. But this isn't as hard as it sounds, I promise, even with a really busy school schedule. Now, I can take this in so many ways to prove this to you, but let's first start out with trends, because everyone knows about trends. There are literally accounts now solely dedicated to telling you what trends are happening right now. Literally, the entire account will be telling you how to execute the trends, what sounds to utilize, what niche they're appropriate for, all of it. You can search up on TikTok or Instagram these types of creators and just follow them, and they'll tell you exactly what trends to do. Even more so recently, and I'm sure all of us have seen this, CapCut templates have become a trend in and of themselves, right? So literally CapCut, what they've done is make this template feature where someone can create this template. They'll literally structure the entire video for you. All you have to do is insert media to it. So you insert photos or videos that match what they want you to put in there, but it be in accordance to your account, right? CapCut will do all of that for you, and all you have to do is export it and put it straight into the app. And this has become a trend, and it literally takes you at most, even if you're not doing it through CapCut, but you're utilizing one of those easier trends, I can't imagine longer than 30 minutes, right? Because that's a great way of getting your feet wet with content creation and staying consistent. And I would certainly batch this too. So if you're seeing a lot of these videos come out and you know that they're going to be trends and you got on it early enough, then just create several of them, right? Bam, you got yourself a good amount of content to post. Number 2, in the previous video, we talked about creating systems that decrease the time it takes to produce each video and how that system is optimizable in the sense where the more inputs you give it, the better it gets at doing just that. Now you can watch that video to go over that explanation because I went through it a lot more thoroughly, but you can create those systems that'll help you be a lot more consistent. I actually really encourage you watching that because it'll help you, because it really helped me and I wish somebody would have told me that. Number 3, you can repost your content, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So say that you created a content today, but in 3 weeks from now, say that you're really struggling to find content to post, or you're just having a really tough, busy day that you just can't get around to it for whatever reason. It happens. Just repost your content from 3 weeks prior that you made. Because the way that the algorithm works, sometimes it might have just not pushed out to the right audience. It's just how the algorithm works, especially when you're so early on. It's not going to know exactly. And yes, even if you use hashtags, still, it might not reach the right type of audience. Now, if you repost that again, you're giving it a second life. When you get a little bit more experience with this, you can do things where you change the hook or you change the order of the clips so that you're repurposing the content, but while giving it another life, you're actually creating a different twist to it, so you give it a better chance to have that second life. But for now, you can literally just post the same piece of content over again whenever you need it. So those are just 3 things, the trends along with creating the system that I went over really in depth in the other video, and then reposting your content. That should help you be consistent and post almost every day, okay? Number 5, I would not worry so much about being professional or looking polished, right? It's not always about looking pretty for the camera. And I used to, admittedly, worry so much about this, right? I would worry so much about the way that my hair looked and what outfit I was wearing. And, you know, if I'd washed my face or I don't know, all of that stuff. And I would think, oh, because I'm not having the best day appearance-wise, then I can't make content. Oh my goodness. The amount of videos that I missed out on because I was so worried about it looking professional and polished. And this isn't just my physical appearance, but this is everything in terms of the edits. This is everything in terms of the angles of your shots, all of that, right? When you first start out, you're gonna wanna create content like the type of content that you see in movies. But the truth of the matter is, we can't. We just don't have the skill to. Those people went to school for years and have decades of experience to be able to do that. Who do we think we are just trying to pick up the camera and trying to replicate that? It's gonna look horrible, right? In comparison to that. So you gotta understand that when you're creating content, you're not trying to compete with your camera skills because you won't win unless you do have experience and you are one of those people that know how to do all of that good stuff. Then absolutely you can compete with them. But for people like me that have never experienced content creation prior, what you have to understand is that you need to be authentic to you. You need to be natural. You need to be giving off a FaceTime-like feel. But all of that comes with practice, right? Trying to talk to a camera at first is going to be super awkward, even just that, right? And so getting practice with it and as many reps as possible is so imperative. But you can get a lot more practice and you can create a lot more content if you stop worrying so much about the professionalism, right? We're not in corporate here, right? And trust me, that was really hard for me because I've only experienced corporate, right? And the fact that I had to create content that wasn't necessarily the most aesthetic and still have to post it was hard at first, but you kind of get a little bit better at bringing down your walls and letting your authentic self be showcased to the world. But not only will that allow you to be more consistent, that actually creates the best type of content, right? Because if you can bring down your walls, more people connect to you. People don't connect with me if I come on here and say that, oh, I'm a millionaire already, right? First of all, that's not true. But if I was super made in life, if I figured everything out and I was coming on here doing that and talking from such a higher place up, I don't think many of you would connect with me, right? I think it's because I'm in the midst of trying to figure everything out in my life. I'm in the midst of trying to experiment and try different things and failing at it in real time, that you guys connect with me because I'm so transparent about that process. But that's the great part about content creation. You have to be authentic because not only will it allow you to be more consistent with your postings because you'll just have much more to create, but also it allows you to build a real connection with your audience. And so it's going to take your content creation to the next level. So I certainly would not be so worried about being professional or super polished. Number 6, and this actually goes along really well with what I just talked about. I wouldn't care too much about the way that my feed looks. And I get it. This has been instilled in us for a very long time. To the point in which now there are apps that literally simulate your posts in context with your current feed so that you can see the post above you and below you and to the sides of you. And you can see whether or not that they collectively showcase an aesthetic that you want portrayed to the public. And are there certain creators that are based on a specific aesthetic, usually in lifestyle or the fashion industries? Absolutely. And they do have to care about this a lot more. But for most of us, for most of you watching right now that are just starting out, it just becomes another point of hesitation that is unnecessary for 2 reasons. Number 1, the obvious reason, you can always archive, right? You can always, on TikTok, make your videos private. If you really do care about the way that your aesthetic looks and months down the line, you're at that point in which you regret the way that your feed looks, you can always manipulate it. So don't think that it's permanent, right? Number 2, the one that's a little bit less obvious, the way that you are discovered utilizing short form content is mostly through the explore pages, right? And they will literally follow you directly from their explore page. How do I know this? Well, I get a notification every time someone does this. It'll say creator X followed you through this reel. And that happens a lot more often than not. So people aren't even necessarily caring too much about the way that your feed looks. Now, are there times in which people do go into your feed? That's a good thing. And it happens. And you should certainly capitalize on it. So you should absolutely choose appropriate cover photos, ones that aren't blurry and that entice people to click on them. And even now, there are ways to import photos. So if you really do care about this, you can always create your cover photos separate from your actual filming. But in general, if you're caring so much about when and where to post something, it's going to do a lot more harm than good in the sense where it's going to slow your posting process. Right now in this beginner stage, I know we had mentioned it, but all you care about is being as consistent as possible, exploring as many opportunities to create content, and getting a feel for your likes and dislikes. The way that your feed looks should be absolutely secondary to that. Number 7, I would not care about equipment whatsoever. Look, if you're watching this, you have some sort of smartphone, most likely. You got all you need. For the last 3 years, while I've been able to amass the followings that I have, that I'm so blessed to have, it's been utilizing my broken iPhone 10 that is shattered everywhere, right? My entire process looks like this. I'll film on my phone, I will edit on my phone utilizing CapCut, and post on my phone. You don't need all the equipment in terms of lighting. You don't need all the equipment in terms of a good camera or anything like that. All you need is your phone, and if you want, maybe a small tripod that you can carry around with you so that it can hold your phone. But even to this day, right now, I'm just balancing you on my window, and that has done me just fine, right? So I would not care too much about the equipment. And at this point, I know that that was such a lame excuse for myself when I was first starting out, because I was looking for the best cameras and the best equipment. I thought, oh, because I don't have the money to afford these things, I should continuously delay my start. Absolutely not. If you're watching this, again, you have some sort of smartphone, most likely utilize that. That'll be more than enough. And then later down the line, if you want to invest in your content creation because it's taken off or you just want to focus on it more, do that. But for now, all you need is that smartphone, I promise. Number 8, I would not look at my follower count more than I have to. And this is actually something I'm super proud of that I didn't fall into the habit of, because I know a lot of creators that did fall into this habit, and man, can that create a lot of anxiety. And it's easy to fall into this temptation early on, because initially you're under the impression that your success as a creator is predicated around the number next to your name, but that could not be further from the truth. Please, if you don't get anything out of this video, take this away. It could not be further from the truth, because if you have a decrease in followers, doesn't mean that you're necessarily doing anything bad. And certainly doesn't mean that the world is crashing and burning and you should give up. Absolutely not. But even if your followers increase, it doesn't mean that you're on top of the world and doing everything right. You might actually be building an audience that doesn't align with your value system, that isn't monetizable. So in general, one that you don't want. And so if you and I, whoever's watching this, work together personally in the future, I will repeat this until your ears fall off. I don't even know if that's a saying, but if that is a saying, or even if it's not, I will repeat it to the point in which your ears fall off. Control what you can control. Oh my goodness, this was a game changer for me. And this made content creation so much more fun and a lot less anxiety provoking. Change the game. So what can you control? You can control creating a schedule for yourself that allocates the necessary time each day to come up with content, to film and to edit and to post consistently. That's all you can control. So you can control the fact that you're going to post 5 videos a week. You can control that. I promise you, if you can stick to that, it's in the process of doing that actively that your follower count will increase, and it'll be an audience that you actually want to cultivate. It's not the opposite way around. And if you're solely focused on that number next to your name, you're going to lose the sense of purpose of why you're doing this in the first place. So it's a no-go. Do not fall into that temptation. Never. It'll make this creation journey a lot less fun. Number 9, I would not miss a chance to engage. These are opportunities, okay? This means comments, DMs, story replies, lives, all of it. There's a multitude of reasons why you should be doing it, but let me tell you a little bit of how I've been approaching it. And I believe that this has been a fundamental reason for any of the success that I've had to this point. It's because I truly care about the people that I interact with. And you should too, as a creator. When I first started out, I was responding to every single DM possible. At this point, it's not practical or even possible for me to be able to physically respond to everyone through DMs. And so I'll take about 40 minutes a day responding, but it'll be through voice messages and trying to give out as much guidance and encouragement as possible. And then I'll utilize stories as another channel of doing that. And then lives are a great opportunity for me to do that in a massive scale while we're all gathered together, right? And these are some of the reasons why it's important. Number 1, your audience members, your viewers are the reason why you have the platform in the first place, right? Don't get it twisted. You're nothing if they left, okay? And so I know that it's easy to get a bigger head and to be thinking that you are something that you're not, but never forget the fact that these are people that you're speaking to. These are people that you could potentially help. And so utilize your content for that outreach, but make sure you're doing everything you can to cultivate that and to nurture your community in every way that you can possibly do it, right? And then number two, it's important feedback in terms of, yes, are your videos good in the first place? Like, what are they saying in the comments? But also, do they feel safe and involved in the community that you're building? If there aren't many people commenting on your posts, and if there aren't many people that are coming and viewing your stories or on your lives, and this is all relative, I mean, in terms of the size of your own platform, then you might not be doing a good job in terms of getting them involved, right? And so maybe be the first to reach out to them. Don't always just wait for them to reach out to you. And number three, eventually, if you want to monetize, you do have to be aware of the demographic of your audience, not just what Instagram and TikTok insights tell you, but actually what are their interests. Because if you're looking to make a product and be able to use your platform as a leverage opportunity, you got to make sure that they're willing to even utilize the product or service that you're marketing. So there's a lot of reasons to be connected with your audience, but these are certainly opportunities. So treat them as ones. Don't think that, oh, they're a waste of time to nurture the community. Absolutely not. It's vital, absolutely vital. So always remember that. Number 10, I wouldn't miss out on trends. I know when you're first starting out that it's easy to think that trends are tacky and only for less serious creators, but absolutely not. They're trends for a reason. People like viewing that form of content. That doesn't mean that you replicate exactly what they did. It's your responsibility to add a twist to the content so that your personality, that your brand is shown in that content, right? But don't miss out on trends just because you have a perception on it. Most likely it's not accurate. There are some really powerful ways to utilize trends to get your message across to a massive amount of people. And of course, if the trends are early when you are discovering them, then you have a better chance of getting into it while it explodes. You don't want to be looking at trends that are completely saturated already. But either way, look to create a twist on it and take advantage of those trends. Number 11, I wouldn't solely focus on trends. Yes, they have their place, absolutely. But it's important that your source of content is mixed in with things that aren't just trends. And the reason for this, there's a lot. But number one, you will burn out if you do this, right? And a lot of creators, unfortunately, go this route because they'll have success with trends and they'll then become super reliant on them. But the truth of the matter is, not every trend is suitable for the content that you're generating. And it's not like there's new trends appearing every single day, maybe every single week. But what if the trend for that week doesn't suit your content? Then what? You're just not going to make content? We just went over why it's so important for you to be consistent. So absolutely not. You shouldn't be allowing an external force to stop you from creating content. And that goes back to us talking about controlling what we can control. But with any of my clients and people that I personally help develop their platforms, we think about brainstorming for content in subsets, right? So a majority of your subsets of content should be initiated by you, inspired by you, whether that's to nurture or to outreach. It could do either. But a smaller portion should be initiated by the algorithm. So those are things like trends, like whether it's a carousel feature that might be doing well, whether it's a certain effect, whether it's a certain sound. All of that are initiated by algorithm changes and evolutions. Whereas you need a majority of your content that's initiated by you, inspired by you, so that if you can focus a majority of your time creating content like that, you don't run into the issue of burning out because you're not constantly looking out into the algorithm to feed you content. You are consistently feeding that system in-house so that you always have that content. Does that make sense? And so trends certainly have its place, but don't become over-reliant on them. it'll certainly make you burn out. Number 12, saving the very best for last. I wouldn't care about what others have to say about me. I understand that this is the biggest hurdle for most of us from ever getting started in the first place, but listen to me very closely, okay? Nobody who is doing more than you will ever be the ones saying those things. It'll always be those that are doing less than you. So take those comments, those nasty remarks, those judgmental looks for what they are. Jealousy. They are jealous of the fact that you are actually trying to achieve your dreams, that you're actually trying to do all the things necessary for you to set yourself up for a future that you've imagined for yourself. Because it's all possible, but that hurdle needs to be overcome first. You have to understand that it's not about what other people have to say about you. It's about what you have to say about yourself. So in 3-4 years down the line, are you going to be able to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you did everything that you could possibly do, that you actually attempted to pursue your dreams? Or are you going to tell yourself at that point it's a little bit too late? Don't let that be you, okay? I encourage you all to start today. If anything that I said encouraged you or inspired you, or if you've always been on the fence, take this as a sign to begin today.